Binge or Bin from Independent TV, giving you the lowdown on which TV shows are binge-worthy and which ones are bin-worthy. This week, we've been watching Industry Season 2 on BBC iPlayer and Sky Atlantic's Boris Johnson series, This England.
And we'll introduce you to our pick of hidden gems we think you should be watching.
Annabel!
Jacob, you're back!
I'm back. Did you miss me?
I did, although we had some good fill-ins for you, so you've got some big shoes to fill now.
Well, damn. Well, thanks for putting the pressure on. Should we talk TV?
Yes. Yeah, well, what have you been watching in your weeks away?
Oh, yeah, a lot. But one thing I'm going to talk about today is the TV show Industry, which is a American-British co-production that is on BBC iPlayer now. So season 2 is here. And if you don't know, this show is about a team of graduates who are fighting for a job in the financial world at a company called Pierpoint. You don't need to know about finance to watch the show, but you might be kind of trailing a little bit behind with all the terminology flying back and forth. But the beauty of this show is that you don't really understand what's happening and what they're talking about, but you can follow everything still. And I like that because it makes you feel quite intellectual when you're watching it. But the show is, not just all about the finance jargon. It's about the personal lives of the graduates who are fighting for this job. And, in that way, they don't really shy away from the more, let's say, adult side of things. So this is not a TV show you want to watch with your parents. There's a lot of drugs, a lot of sex, swearing, and it just shines light on the gritty side of business, I guess. It's really grabbing television. It's really addictive. It really lends itself to I don't want to give away what I'm going to say, but it lends itself to the binging TV model.
The best idea wins.
And what's the best idea?
Mine.
Stars are great. They're really up to the task. You've got Mahala Harold, who plays Harper, who's the kind of the main graduate we follow, and her mentor figure, Eric Tao, played by Ken Leung, who is in Lost. So, I always have to mention Lost. He is in Lost, but he's so great here. He's probably the best thing in the show. And you have elsewhere, you've got young actors, Marissa Abella, Harry Lawtrey, who I'm sure we're going to see a lot of in the future. It's written by two guys who ex-finance workers, Mickey Downs and Conrad Kay. So you really know that they've got a grasp on everything that needs to be conveyed, but also they're really good at writing TV because you just want to watch on. And you know how Netflix shows are like, they're bingeable, but you just know they're writing sort of the same formula each series, and it's designed to get you to watch on. Whereas this, it's not really written in that way, so you don't feel like you're being manipulated into watching on, which is kind of, it's refreshing.
Yeah, I loved the first season of Industry, and I thought the soundtrack was also really good. So yeah, I'm excited to get into the second one. Is it a binge or a bin?
It's a binge, I'm happy to say. I will say, if I've been critical, that I think it takes a few episodes to get into a groove, season 2. But once it finds its feet, it's just as good as it ever was.
I've been watching This England, which is a 6-episode miniseries. So it follows kind of those early months of the pandemic, and it stars Kenneth Branagh as former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. So the series was written by Michael Winterbottom, whose films include Welcome to Sarajevo and 24-Hour Party People. So cast-wise, you have Kenneth Branagh as Boris, and it doesn't really feel like a very convincing performance. And I can't tell whether that's just because the script he's been given is quite melodramatic and quite stylized. But yeah, it definitely feels at odds with some of the more subtle performances at play. You have Ophelia Lovibod as Carrie Simmons, and you might recognize her from TV shows like HBO's Minx and also Elementary. Just watching it begs the question, who asked for this? It feels way too soon to see a reenactment of a period of history, if you can even call it that, that was really trying and painful for a lot of people. So I don't really know who the target audience is for this. It just feels like I'm watching news clippings kind of pieced together.
Our focus groups show that people will accept a lockdown if we support them financially.
I agree. Obviously, the impact on the economy would be huge.
I think the biggest problem is that the show doesn't really know what it wants to be. It feels like Branagh is playing Boris like it's a satire, and there are also some dream sequences, and the dialogue is quite at times very like melodramatic and almost like Shakespearean. So it feels like it's playing into that. But then at the same time, there's a really like big attention to detail with the production, and other times it really feels like it's like leaning into that verisimilitude of it and just trying to get it as accurate as possible. So it feels kind of torn between these two tones, really. It's already so familiar, and I feel like I just watched this on the news like a week ago, so why am I seeing it reenacted by actors now? I will say that there's like something kind of weird and fun about, you know, just like pointing at characters you see on the TV and being like, oh, that's Chris Whitty, oh, that's Neil Ferguson, but that gets old very quick, and what you're left with is kind of a very boring, dull show about something that you don't want to relive. I think you already know where I'm going with this, but I'll let you ask the question.
This England, is it a binge or a bin?
It's definitely a bin for me. To be honest, I only got through a couple of episodes because I did just find it quite tedious and depressing viewing, to be honest.
This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty.
It certainly sounds like This England will never, ever, ever be one of our hidden gems, which we're going to talk about now. And I love this because we get to shine a light on the TV shows that we love that you might not have seen or heard of, and fast track it to the top of your list. So my one is The Rehearsal, which is a US show created, devised by Nathan Fielder, who is a Canadian comedian who's best known for a TV show called Nathan For You, which is a parody experimental comedy show, and The Rehearsal kind of is that as well, but to the millionth degree. So essentially he lures in unsuspecting people who he says he's going to help basically tackle very, very awkward encounters that they're going to have by setting up a rehearsal space, but actually creating the area that they're going to be doing the awkward encounter in, so that the person can just basically be as comfortable as they can possibly be when they're in that future situation.
Hey, how to make love all night.
Oh, well, you know.
I think we're going to get along pretty well.
So what starts out as what seems like an episodic experiment with one person each week actually turns into this overarching concept that Nathan Fielder himself is kind of injected into the heart of. And if that sounds really confusing and weird but intriguing, then that sounds about right, because this show is probably the most intriguing series one of the most intriguing shows I've ever seen. And it's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's unpredictable, it's controversial. There was a lot of controversy surrounding each episode regarding how much people were aware of what was happening and how much people that were aware of Nathan Fielder himself and his presence in the comedy world. It's very awkward, it's very observational, and it's quite, I hate the word, but it's quite groundbreaking. And I think even if you don't enjoy the show, you'll appreciate putting time in to watch it.
You know, just off the top of my head, I would say, sure, let's go with it.
This is going to be fun.
It will be.
My hidden gem this week is Train, which is a Korean drama from 2020 about a detective whose life is turned upside down when the woman he loves is murdered by a serial killer. So yeah, the logline is very much like every logline for a detective series ever. It's categorized as a drama, but it definitely bridges over into like psychological thriller territory. There's also some like fantasy in there and some romance, and I don't really want to go into that too much without giving it away, because part of what's fun about watching it is that you're kind of strapping in for a very like by the numbers detective story, maybe like a revenge story, but what you get is not that. I will say though that there are definitely some like sci-fi notions in there, parallel universes and timelines, but also if you're like wary about that sort of stuff, which I normally am, I would say kind of like fight that resistance, because it's really good viewing. And yeah, like I said, it just feels quite original. It's not your usual detective series.
우경육 사건 연수예요. 벌써 4명이나 죽었다고요. 5번째 피해자 분명 거기 있어. 이 사건 자체가 정상인 소행이 아닐 수도 있다는 얘기야.
I think it's really anchored by the actors who, I mean, I didn't know, I don't watch that much Korean drama, but the acting feels really good. So while all of this crazy stuff is happening, it still feels very realistic and very plausible, and it never kind of veers too far away from the story at its heart. Like, I would say out of all of the genres, despite those kind of sci-fi elements going on, it is a psychological thriller. So if you are into that, I would definitely recommend it. And it's just something different. I feel like a lot of the time my hidden gems are psychological thrillers about a detective, because I like that. But this was one that kind of took me by surprise, and every episode is literally like a roller coaster, and you kind of just go along for the ride, and you love it as it's happening, and none of the like narrative turns feel too off the wall, even though they definitely are.
처음부터 모든 걸 잘못 생각했어.
Thanks so much for watching Binge or Bin. That's more than enough TV shows to keep you going until we see you again next time. Like and comment below and subscribe for more from Independent TV.